Okay, we've just set up our dashboard, which looks like we can see here. And now I want us to look at the 3 financial reports and adjust our reports accordingly so that we can be super efficient with the way our Xero profile is set up. And we also have a really good baseline understanding of what the reports are. So there are 3 financial reports that all businesses use across the globe. They are our profit and loss, our cash summary, and our balance sheet. Now, they work interchangeably, but they have very separate functions. Our profit and loss measures our invoices versus our expenses and the amount of the amount of profit left over. That is the truest or the best report to look at our financial performance. Then we have our cash summary, which measures our money in and our money out. And the reason that these 2 reports kind of work side by side is that we can recognize income on our profit and loss. So we can send an invoice for 30 grand, but we don't get paid for 14 days for that. So we can recognize that income on our profit and loss, but on our cash summary, that's not going to show up until 14 days time. So that's kind of the relationship between the 2 there. And I think I've covered that quite well in previous videos. Then we have our balance sheet as well, which is our assets versus our liabilities. So if you've got a credit card, that's going to show up on our balance sheet. Also, if you have vehicles, if you own the vehicle outright, that's going to show in our assets. If you have the vehicle on finance, it's going to show in our assets and also in our liabilities. So they're the 3 financial reports, and we're going to dig a lot deeper into those. But first, let's just go a little bit more superficial so that we can know how to navigate our way through Xero and also how to, let's just have a little bit of an introduction into each one of those financial reports. So we're going to accounting here. And firstly, we're going to adjust our starred reports, our favorite reports, so that we can be really efficient when we're using our Xero account. And that way they're all laid out the same so that we don't get confused in the complexity that Xero provides for us. So firstly, we're going to remove some of the accounts that we don't need as our favorites. We're going to remove the account summary, the age payable summary, and the age receivable summary. We just don't need to use those or to look at those so frequently. However, we absolutely do need to see our activity statement, our profit and loss, our cash summary, and our balance sheet. Now, if your cash summary hasn't been selected, it's just down here. And also we're going to add in my favorite report, which is our management report. So we get the 5 of these. These then become our favorite reports and they're there in alphabetical order. So we're going to jump straight into the profit and loss and have a little bit of a look around. And then in the next video, we're going to optimize our P&L. So in our profit and loss here, we have our income. So our invoices sent versus our expenses. And our expenses are broken up into 2 sections. They can be our cost of sales and then our operating expense. So there's some acronyms that we use here. We can call them COGS, C-O-G-S, cost of goods sold, which is our cost of sales. They're our materials, that's our billable labor. And then we also have our operating expenses or our OPEX, O-P-E-X, which is our expenses that are required to keep the doors open. So they're not directly correlated to delivering the work, but they're nonetheless expenses that we still incur. Now there's some questions that you could raise here around whether we need to have vehicle maintenance and whether we need to have fuel and those kind of expenses put up into our COGS. But for the purpose of this, I really want us to focus on defining our cost of sales or our COGS as our billable wages and the associated expenses of that. So super work cover for our billable staff, and then also our materials. And the reason we want to do that is because you've heard me bang on about gross profit over and over. And we want to put those billable wages or the billable expenses and then also our materials into our cost of goods sold so that we can track our gross profit, so that we can understand if there is a fundamental pricing or efficiency issue or if there's an operating expense issue when it comes to problem solving profitability. So what we have here, our total trading income, our cost of sales, other income's not going to be very big. That's our interest income, and whether we sell vehicles, that may pop up there as well. But that'll be relatively small. And then we also have our net profit. Now, our net profit is our true financial performance measure. It's not a measure of how much cash is in our bank. it is a measure that we need to track to make sure the company is healthy. And I'm going to go into, the next video is going to be about how to optimize our profit and loss. But for the moment, we're just going to park that there and just know that our profit and loss is the truest measure of our financial performance. Now, if we jump over to the cash summary is slightly different, because if we invoiced a $10,000 invoice, it's not due for 14 days. That invoice will be recognized on our profit and loss as income, but there will be no cash come into our account for 14 days, for 2 weeks. So on our profit and loss, we will have a $10,000 invoice, but on our cash summary, that won't be recognized until the cash lands into our account. And it might not be perfectly 14 days, it could be 21, it could be 23, but the relationship between the two here is that our profit and loss is where we recognize our income. Our cash summary is measuring the exact money in, money out, our balance transfers that come from our bank reconciliation or our direct bank feed. So we don't look at the cash summary too much unless we are problem solving some cash flow issues. Now, some cash flow issues may arise if we have multiple negative net profit months. Some cash flow issues may arise as well if our accounts receivable days or our collection of invoices starts to drag on as well. And we'll be able to find that information here in the cash summary. So it's laid out very similar to our profit and loss, but it's reflective of the money that comes in and out of our bank account. And then thirdly, the third financial report is our balance sheet. This is really the area where we measure the value of our company, I suppose you could say. It's got all of our liabilities, all of our assets, and as you can see here, the demo company is quite light, and yours may be a little bit more complex than this. You may have, under your current assets, you may have some vehicles in there, you may have some trailers, some bits and pieces like that. I wouldn't have thought you'd have any property in here. That would be a separate Xero file, which you'd have in a separate trust and company, but we can get to corporate structure down the line. But this really, the balance sheet really is somewhere where we say, if everything is said and done and we stopped operating, at the end of the month, all of our invoices were paid, all of our liabilities were paid, how much would be left over? That's really what we're working towards here on the balance sheet. And we can see in this demo company, if everything was said and done, we would be in a negative equity position of $8,500. So if we wanted to quit and hang the boots up or hang the tool belt up, it would cost us $8,500 to get out of this company. The opposite side is if you're in quite a good position, you may find that if all's said and done, you may be able to close up the company and have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 of cash left over. So I hope that gives you a good understanding of the 3 financial reports and also how to adjust our favorites so we can quickly get to them. Now, I didn't touch on the activity statement. This is where you can track how much you owe to the ATO, and I haven't set this up just yet because this is for our single touch payroll and our activity statement lodgements, which I would like your accountant to set up just to make sure everything is correct. But this is where you can quickly grab a report to see how much money do I currently owe in super, in PAYG, and your activity statement all together. So yeah, that's a really good start. And in the next video, I really want to dig deeper into the P&L. So let's just pause it for the moment, and we're going to go deep into the profit and loss in just a minute.